This video is about making another very basic item, a clothing item. I'm going to be using McCall's pattern M5112, and as you can see there's two types of tops, shorts and pants, and actually even a third type of top, like a tunic top there. I'm going to be making the Capri pants, and it's a very simple item to sew. There are only two pattern pieces, and the reason I'm doing this is because learning how to sew basic pants is a very good skill to have. Now I'm going to make, with the fabric I have, I'm going to make a capri length pant. But another thing that you can use this pattern for, I had recently done a video on making the paisley pincushion jumper dress, and if I'm going to wear that dress in the winter and layer it, I had mentioned you could wear long underwear or leggings underneath it. Depending on the fabrics you choose, you can also make these capri pants just slightly longer, and you have basic leggings. So this is a way to use just a few patterns to make more than a few items in your wardrobe. So as I said, I'm going to make the capri patterns, and my purpose is to make these pants and to point out how easy it is to make simple elastic waist pants. There are other patterns that you can make, sweatpants or pajamas. Any kind of elastic waist pant is really the same thing, and it's a good idea to learn how to make these before you try to make pants that have pockets or waistbands or belt areas, yokes. Any of those additional features will be easier to learn if you know how to make elastic waist pants first. So on the table here you see, this is my fabric. Originally I was going to make an apron out of this. This was fabric my mother had, but it's either rayon or it might even be linen. So I didn't want to use it for an apron, and there's enough here to make a pair of pants. You also see wax paper in different sizes on top of the fabric. This is one of those patterns that has huge tissue paper pattern pieces, and in a moment we're going to open that up and we're going to look at it, and as you can see there are 2 pages of directions, but the pants themselves only have about 3 or 4 steps right here. So very simple to make this item out of the pattern. But I will go over some of these. I think it's only 2 pages in English and 2 pages in Spanish. So it's really a 2-page direction pattern. But when I open this up, you'll see what a typical commercial pattern looks like, and all the notes and different things that are on there. The reason I have the wax paper out is because I don't have, the product that I normally use is called Do Sew, D-O-S-E-W, and it's a pattern making material that looks like fusible interfacing, but it isn't, and you can use it to cut out your own version of patterns with. And because I'm all out of that and I don't want to wait until I get some, I'm going to use wax paper, and if I have enough tape, I'll tape the pieces together. I might even stitch the pieces together so that, and then I'll trace my pattern piece from the commercial pattern to my wax paper. You can also use brown paper, like craft paper. You maybe could use newsprint if you have a roll of newsprint. If you have children around, you might have a roll of newsprint around. You could probably use that. So I'm going to make my own copies of these pattern pieces because I probably will be making a longer version and using them as a legging. And depending on the fabrics you choose, these wouldn't be tight leggings, but they would be cotton probably. When I make them the longer length, I would probably make them solid color cotton. So they're just a light layer to wear under a dress. I happen to like that. It's comfortable, especially if I'm working outside in the garden or if I'm going on a long walk or something. You know, any time that you just want that extra layer for any reason. But the first thing we're going to do is make the capri pants in this fabric. I will be, as I said, making my own pattern piece out of the wax paper. And another aspect that I'm going to bring into this is the sewing machine I use. Now, I had gone back to hand piecing to kind of hone up on my skills with that. I've used a Model 20, and I could make these pants on a Model 20. There's no gathering involved. There is an elastic waist band, but the only sewing with that should be involved is the actual seam finishing, where the two pieces of elastic are held in place, and that could be done by hand very easily. So these could be made with a machine as simple as a Model 20. And what I'm going to use and for these pants is a machine that's similarly simple, but it was considered the sewing machine for the home at the time. And I know it's a little dark right now where it is. This is an 1872 Howe Model A Stockwell, or Howe Stockwell Model A. And the reason the Stockwell name is there, in 1846, Elias Howe, who is from originally Spencer, Massachusetts, he patented the first sewing machine. And this machine is from 1872, and by that time, his two son-in-laws were involved in the business. So the name Stockwell, which was their last name, is involved with this because this machine was made when they were making the machines. So it's an 1872 Howe Stockwell Model A. And it's a very basic, simple machine. Now, people, I have it on rollers right now. People buy antique machines for different reasons. A lot of people buy them as antique pieces for their home or collectibles. This machine belonged to my father, and he loved old machines, especially from the Civil War or after era. And this would have been after the Civil War. And I think he also liked this because we live in Massachusetts, and Mr. Howe was originally from Massachusetts. It's a very, very simple design. As I was saying, it's a very simple design. And the reason I'm using this machine is it's a step up from the Model 20 in a sense, because it has very little extra features. It sews a straight stitch. It doesn't have reverse. It's not a chain stitch machine. It is a lock stitch machine. But again, it is going to do one thing. It is going to make stitches to keep fabric together in order to make items. And a simple pattern such as the pants that I'm going to make can easily be worked up on one of these machines. And another aspect of this is these machines have a value, not only historically or collectibles or antiques. They have a value because of their simplicity. If someone wants to learn how to sew, and all they really need to do is learn how to make a straight seam, learn how to trim your fabric right, learn how to make a hem, very basic sewing skills. Your machine doesn't necessarily have to have a lot of features. What you need is something that will make adequate stitches. Now, this machine may or may not give me a little bit of trouble during this project. I don't think so. I don't expect any problems. The biggest issue for me with this is winding a bobbin. It's a very simple bobbin winder, but there isn't a lot of tension thread guides with it. So I kind of have to do it not by hand. It's mounted to the hand wheel below, the drive wheel. But again, it's a skill to learn. If you have an antique machine that's kind of sitting around and you're not sure if you can actually use it, if it's a working machine, I recommend that people actually use them, not only because it's kind of neat to use an old machine. When I wind a bobbin, I'm going to have to run the thread from up here, down here, to the bobbin winder right here on the hand wheel, on the drive wheel. And as I said, there's not a lot of tension thread guides. So the skill I'm reusing is winding a bobbin evenly by hand. Now, many people consider that an inconvenience, and in some ways I guess it is. It's also a skill, because then when you're using a machine from the modern era, when you watch your bobbin wind, you're going to know, is it winding it correctly or not? Is it winding it evenly? In other words, it's similar to hand piecing or hand sewing. If you know what it's supposed to look like when it's done well by hand, then you'll know what it's supposed to look like when a machine does it. So there are a lot of advantages to using not only a simple machine, but an antique machine. And I think I'm not really a collector of machines. As I said, this was my father's, and it's just an adorable little machine. I mean, how can you not like a machine like this? And I think that if I can use it to make clothes or quilts or whatever I'm making, then the machine benefits because it's in use. I benefit because I get a new item. And I think that the more people use these or are familiar with them, overall we all benefit, because the products that the sewing companies are putting out now are all evolved from this. And if you know where they came from, you will know the quality of any machine, whether it's a $1,500 computerized machine or whether it's a simple machine like my brother, LX3014, whether it's a vintage 60s Singer or a white treadle. This is how they started. And this is one of the models of how they started. He had the first patent on this machine. There were a few different models at the time with different features. But this is where sewing started. And if you're familiar with where it started, then you can move forward with it. So we're going to make a pair of capri pants on an 1872 Howe Stockwell Model A.